In this lesson we're going to be looking at Visual Basic for applications and specifically arguments. So if you want to play along, VBA for Beginners video 2 is the file to download from download section of the website, and there's a link to that below the video, and there's also a link to a blog post with some of the code in it. So let's open up our database. Okay, what did we do last time? We had the Form Navigator open, and we had this button which is Command Open Students Data Entry. And this button had a macro to open the form students data entry. And what we did is we converted that to a little bit of code. Here it is. And it's command open students data entry underscore click, and it gave us this line of code which we use to open the form. Now what we're interested in this lesson is the bit that comes after the do command that open form, which is this section here. Why do we need it? And how can we use it to benefit us? Well, quite simply, we've performed an open form action, which we've basically instructed Access to open a form. However, Access is not telepathic of all its amazing abilities that it has. Ergo, we need to actually tell it which form to open up, and that essentially is passing an argument. So we've given it a method, so we want you to do this, and then we need to give it a little bit of extra information to help it make the right decision. So we've given it the name of the form. Now let us do something. Let's get rid of all this information after that, including the comma. Hit save, minimize that, change the form view, and hit open form, and it still works. So was that information I just deleted relevant? Well, yes and no. Basically, the way it works, we've got the name of the form here, put the cursor after the closed brackets and hit comma, and you can actually see it lists all of the arguments that it needs. Now any of these arguments in square brackets are what's called optional arguments, which means we don't have to give Access to that information. And the reason they're optional is because in some cases Access just doesn't require them. In other cases Access has a default that it will choose. Now, for example, we've supplied the form name, and the next one is view as AC form view. So how do we want to actually open up the form? Well, if we choose, for example, AC normal, we'll get what we just had where the form opens up in normal view. We can actually change that and choose AC layout. So now, when we open up, or save it, when we open up the form, it will open up in layout view. Okay, proof of that. Let's close that. Now, if we don't supply the argument, Access will automatically, by default, go for account normal. Okay, now hit a comma. Now we go to filter name. Now, when you open up a form, you can actually set a filter. In this case, it is something obviously we'll do in the future, but it's not something we want to do right now. So hit a comma, and then we move on to where condition. This is similar to a filter. We open up the form and giving a bit of information to search by criteria. But again, it's optional, and if we leave it blank, nothing happens. It doesn't actually have a default per se. So we'll go for that. Hit another comma. Now we get what was it? Account form, the data mode. So how do we want to open up the form, and what are the differences? Well, AC form add will open up the data entry form in add new record mode, which if you've looked at any of the other videos, we do quite a lot. Let's click on it and see what happens. So yes, new record. Hit escape, close that, and bring your, it's gone, there it is, bring that back. So you've got AC form add, which is obviously very useful. We've also got edit, which is what we're going to want, and we've got read only and property settings. Read only is where you can open up the form and you can't actually manipulate any of the information in it. Edit is the one we would want in this case. So if we open up the form now, we do get all the information. It is an existing customer, we can actually edit it, which is great. What comes after edit? We have Windows mode. Yeah, so we've got dialog, hidden, icon, Windows mode normal. The two you'll use most would be Windows mode, normal, and dialog, and then you've also got the option of account hidden. Normal is just as is. That's considered normal for access. But in this case, something like a data entry form, in this case I want it to open up in dialog. I'm not going to say in all cases, just in this case. So let's open up. Now we've got dialog mode, which means it pops up and you cannot manipulate any other information. That's really good for program flow. Okay, and last but not least, open arguments. Yeah, this is what you use in a form, sort of the open form method to pass information to a form. Now this actually you can't do in the macro, but you obviously can do in a in VBA. But they're the arguments anyway. Like I said, some of them, like this one, if you leave it blank, it assumes a default. Other ones, like the where and the set filter, if you leave it blank, it literally is blank. Other ones you have to supply, for example, the name of the form. And just one little last thing while we're here. Go to layout view, add a button below open form. Go to click macro builder. If you put the open form event in and go form students data entry, as you can see, when you write a macro, you actually, all these arguments are all right here, and you supply the arguments into the macro, and what that does is underneath access it converts it into the code. But the arguments aren't a new thing if you are used to using macros. It's just that you're doing them in a different way. Maybe you never thought of them like that, but this is all information that you're given access to help open up the form correctly. Okay, so I'm going to delete that. Okay, thank you for that, and hopefully see you in the next video.